20% of the world's oil passes through a gap barely 30 kilometers wide float, and one country has threatened, for decades, to shut it. This is the Strait of Hormuz, the most important choke point in the global economy, and the most dangerous flashpoint in the Middle East. For over 40 years, Iran has said the same thing. If it cannot use the strait safely, no one can build, and it has the tools to try. On the other side sits the most powerful navy in history, permanently stationed less than 200 miles away, built for exactly this scenario.
So what would actually happen if Iran tried to close the Strait of Hormuz? And could the United States Navy stop it in time?
This is what military planners, economists, and history all say would really happen once. Every single day, roughly 17 million barrels of oil move through this one corridor, more than a fifth of everything the world consumes. To understand what a closure would actually look like, you first have to understand exactly how narrow pult and how exposed this water really is. At its narrowest point, ships have barely 3 kilometers of usable water in each direction, close enough to hit with shore-based weapons.
Close that lane for even a single week, and energy analysts estimate oil prices could spike well past $200 a barrel.
China, Japan, India, and South Korea alone import most of their oil through this single corridor, say. Iran controls the entire northern coastline of the strait, giving it a natural advantage. Everything passing through is within range of its shore batteries. This isn't a new threat. Iran and the United States have already fought here once before, and that history explains almost everything happening today. During the 1980s tanker war, Iran mined these waters and attacked over 200 ships to us, until a US warship struck one of those mines.
States retaliated within days, sinking half of Iran's operational navy in a single day, the largest US surface battle since World War II.
That lesson has shaped Iranian strategy ever since. Never fight the US Navy ship to ship again. Fight in ways it cannot easily outgun. Today, that strategy has evolved into something far harder to stop. Swarms of small, fast, cheap boats, and a navy built entirely around them. So if Iran wanted to actually close the strait today, not a single dramatic battle turns, is almost certainly how it would begin. Iran is estimated to hold thousands of naval mines, cheap, difficult to detect, and capable of shutting a shipping lane in hours, not weeks. Analysts believe mine laying could happen quickly, using civilian-looking vessels that are nearly impossible to identify as hostile until it's too late. At the same time, IRGC fast attack boats, small, armed, and expendable, would likely swarm shipping lanes to threaten or disable individual tankers. Add mobile, truck-mounted anti-ship missiles hidden along the coastline, and a single tanker could be struck from land without any warning at all. Within the first hours of any real attempt, insurance companies would likely suspend coverage for the region, and commercial shipping would simply stop moving. Oil markets react in minutes, not days. Traders call this scenario price to panic, meaning prices move before a single ship is actually hit. The US Fifth Fleet, headquartered in Bahrain, exists specifically for this exact scenario. Its ships would move to escort and clear within hours. Clearing modern naval mines is slow, methodical work. Even with advanced drones, experts estimate it could take days to fully clear a single lane.
Carrier-based aircraft would almost certainly be tasked with hunting the fast attack boats and missile launchers before they can strike a second time.
This is the core problem. Hundreds of cheap boats and mobile launchers are far harder to eliminate than one large, obvious military target. Iran has also invested heavily in low-cost attack drones, capable of swarming a single vessel from multiple directions at almost no cost per unit. Military analysts widely agree on one point. A full closure attempt would almost certainly trigger direct combat within the first 48 hours. Gulf allies, whose economies depend even more heavily on the strait, would likely join US forces in protecting shipping almost immediately. Behind every statistic is a merchant crew. Thousands of ordinary sailors who would suddenly find themselves in the middle of a war zone. Within days, the busiest waterway on Earth could look like this, not because ships were destroyed, but
on paper, this isn't close-timed. The US Navy outmatches Iran's conventional forces by almost every traditional measure imaginable.
But Iran isn't trying to win a conventional war first. Its entire strategy is built around making the cost of keeping the strait open unbearable. Even a losing engagement can succeed for Iran if it forces insurers and shipping companies to avoid the region for weeks afterward.
Once combat begins, US air power would almost certainly dominate the skies within the first day, striking known launch sites and boat bases.
The real bottleneck isn't destroying Iran's forces porty, It's clearing thousands of mines from miles of open water, one careful pass at a time.
Most defense estimates suggest the strait could be forced fully open again within 1 to 3 weeks, but at enormous economic cost. Even a short closure could add hundreds of billions of dollars to the global economy's fuel bill before a single extra barrel moves again. Iran would suffer just as badly. Its own oil exports depend on the same waterway, meaning a closure would cripple its own economy too. This mutual damage is exactly why, despite decades of threats, Iran has never actually followed through on a full, sustained closure before. China, which buys the majority of Iran's oil exports, would likely apply enormous diplomatic pressure to prevent a closure from ever happening at all. Behind the scenes, most analysts believe diplomatic backchannels would be working just as hard as the navies to prevent full-scale war. Military planners describe this as an escalation ladder. Each side has multiple chances to step back before reaching full-scale conflict. The first real clash would likely start small: Kate, a warning shot, an intercepted boat, an incident that could spiral in either direction. Historians point out that most Gulf incidents since the 1980s started not from strategy, but from a single miscalculation under pressure.
Within hours of any real clash, markets worldwide would register the shock. Fuel, shipping, and airline stocks moving before
Airlines would raise fuel surcharges within days, and shipping companies would begin rerouting around the entire region at massive added cost. Some cargo would reroute around the entire Arabian Peninsula, adding weeks to delivery times and driving up prices on nearly everything shipped by sea. A handful of overland pipelines exist specifically as a backup fence, but together, they can carry only a small fraction of what the strait moves daily. Major economies do hold strategic reserves for exactly this scenario flits, but analysts estimate those reserves would only cushion the shock for weeks, not months. Within a week, expect a rapid multinational naval buildup, allied nations moving ships into the region specifically to reopen and protect the lane. Iranian military planners would face a hard calculation of their own: how long to sustain the pressure before the economic damage turns inward.
Most analysts agree on the likeliest outcome. Not a full closure, but weeks of disruption, escalation, and enormous cost.
By some estimates, even a partial 3-week disruption could cost the global economy well over $1 trillion in combined losses. Behind every economic figure would be real casualties too. Sailors, Coast Guard crews, and service members. So the strait would almost certainly reopen eventually to sailors. The real question is what the world looks like in the weeks it stays closed. History already answered part of this question once. During the actual tanker war, the strait never fully closed, even at the height of fighting.
Convoy escorts, minesweeping, and sheer economic necessity kept oil moving even during open combat.
One real difference today is technology. Drones, precision missiles, and real-time tracking make this version far faster and far more visible worldwide. Every incident would be filmed, tracked, and broadcast within minutes, turning a regional military standoff into a live global news event instantly. That visibility cuts both ways. It pressures leaders toward restraint, but it can also make backing down look politically impossible for either side. A prolonged crisis would inevitably draw in every nation bordering the Gulf, each with its own stakes, alliances, and red lines to defend. Some economists argue this exact vulnerability is accelerating the world's shift toward renewable energy, reducing the strait's chokehold over time, but not yet. For now, that transition is far from complete. The global economy still runs overwhelmingly on the oil that passes through this single waterway.
War risk insurance premiums for the region would likely spike overnight, adding enormous cost to every ship willing to attempt the crossing at all.
Many shipping companies would simply choose to wait it out in port, betting that a short delay costs less than the risk of sailing through. A formal international escort system, similar to the 1980s convoys, would almost certainly be re-established within the first 2 weeks of any crisis. Inside Iran, a prolonged closure would likely worsen inflation and shortages that were already straining the country's own economy before the crisis began. Eventually, both sides face the same pressure. The economic pain becomes harder to justify than whatever the original standoff was actually about. Most historical standoffs in this region have ended the same way, not through victory, but through quiet negotiation once the cost became unbearable. Shipping would likely resume gradually, first under heavy escort, then slowly returning to normal over the following month as confidence rebuilds. In the years after, expect a permanent increase in naval forces stationed in the region, a lasting military footprint left behind by the crisis. Countries and companies alike would likely accelerate plans to reduce their dependence on this single choke point for good. reshaping trade routes for decades. In many ways, this entire scenario has already played out once before, and the only real question is whether the world has actually learned from it. For now, energy security experts agree on one uncomfortable fact. That mutual dependence is, ironically, the very thing that has kept the strait open through 4 decades of threats, incidents, and near misses. Fragile is not the same as safe. A single miscalculation could still turn decades of careful restraint into open conflict within hours. Which is why, even now, this narrow stretch of water quietly shapes fuel prices, airlines. It's easy to forget how much of daily life depends on a corridor most people will never see, and few could even find on a map. So could Iran attempt it? Yes. Could it succeed in a lasting closure? Almost every serious analysis says no, which brings us back to the real question underneath all of this, not whether it could happen, but whether either side actually wants it to. Let's bring it all together, everything the history, the military balance, and the economics actually tell us about this scenario. First, Iran has the tools to disrupt the strait, mines, fast boats, missiles, and drones, but not to hold it closed indefinitely. Second, the United States and its allies have the firepower to reopen the strait, but clearing mines safely still takes real time. Third, both sides would suffer enormous economic damage, which is exactly why history shows this scenario ending in negotiation, not total war. And fourth, the biggest danger isn't a deliberate war, it's a single miscalculation spiraling out of control within hours. This single strait is a reminder of just how interconnected and how fragile the systems supporting modern life actually are. The Strait of Hormuz isn't alone. Choke points like this exist all over the world, each one a quiet pressure point in the global economy. 40 years after the tanker war, the same narrow strip of water still holds the same outsized power over the entire world's economy. And as long as that tension exists, this scenario remains less a question of if, and more a question of exactly when it gets tested again. For the sailors who cross this water every single day, none of this is theoretical. It's simply part of doing their job, quietly, under pressure.
Right now, at this exact moment, dozens of tankers are quietly crossing this same stretch of water, and most of the world never even notices.
So no, a full, lasting closure is unlikely. But the fact that it's even possible is exactly why this waterway matters so much.
And this isn't the only place in the world where a handful of ships and a narrow stretch of water could reshape the entire global economy.
There's another choke point, thousands of miles away, where the exact same standoff is quietly playing out right now, and we'll break that down next. If this kind of deep, honest breakdown of the world's real flashpoints is something you value, this channel exists to keep making exactly that. This has been an Ironlore Studio production, built on real history, real strategy, and the stories behind the headlines most people scroll past.
If you want to understand how the world actually works, not just the headlines, subscribing helps this kind of research keep getting made.
Every day, thousands of these quiet, high-stakes decisions are being made in choke points just like this one, all across the planet.
And for now, at least, this one keeps moving, carrying not just oil, but the fragile balance holding the region together.
So, what would actually happen if Iran tried to shut down the Strait of Hormuz? Disruption? Yes. That's the honest answer. Not the dramatic one, but the one history, economics, and military reality actually agree on together. Thank you for watching this Ironlore Studio breakdown, More real-world flashpoints, told with the same care, are coming very soon.